And let's stay with matters around the ANC. Former ANC North West provincial Chairperson Supra Mahumapelo has penned a 19-page document titled ANC Rebranding, Repositioning and Renewal. He's proposing several changes, including reducing the number of NEC members, the relationship the party must have with communities, and the role that must be played by branches to ensure the process of rebranding, reposition and renewal is a success. Supra Mahumapelo joins us live now. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Have you submitted these particular proposals to the powers that be at Luthuli House? Mr. Mahumapelo, you are on mute. Yes, you are on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Bongi. I was saying that thank you very much, and to the viewers at home. In terms of Rule 5 of the ANC Constitution, any member of the organization has got the right to circulate his or her views within the organization. So that has been done. And I submitted the paper to the branch, and it has been submitted also to other branches and anybody in the country to look at the paper, so that as we engage towards the national conference, all other views must be put on the table. It doesn't necessarily mean that the paper has to be approved by the upper structure. All of us can bring our thoughts on the table.
And I was perusing through the 19 pages. There's a few things that grab my attention. Let's start with what you are calling the victimhoodists within the rank of the ANC. You say these are some that have projected themselves as victims instead of being judged on the work they do for the organization or the people. Yet, reading this, some will argue that this is on brand for the ANC, as we've seen different factional battles play out.
Well, as a movement, as part of renewal, we should be critical of every aspect of our work. And part of being critical is to look at the individuals and the collectives. Now, the paper says, within the ANC, an observation has been made that there are members of the ANC in all parts of the country. Instead of them concentrating their work at all times, to work for the branches, to work for the people, and make sure that we account to the members of the organization and the people, the focus is more on projecting themselves as victims of some of the leaders who may be there or of the structures. So it means that there are people within the organization who, instead of them being judged on the quality of work they do and the amount of work we should be doing to change the lives of our people, rather, the focus is on who has been wronged and how those wrongs must be corrected in a way that seeks to benefit those who project themselves as victims. So it's a problem. And sometimes some of the leaders, instead of going deep into the causes of the problems, superficially we just look at the issues. And that's where then tensions start emanating from within the organization. And they take long to resolve. So I'm basically saying, for us to judge ourselves as members and leaders, let's simply look at the work that you do. And your work in the organization must speak for you, not who are you related to, who are you linked to, who are you working with within the organization.
I suppose part of renewal is to also have candid conversations about what exactly is going on. So where would you place the blame when it comes to those who are acting as victims, who do not want to be judged on the work that they do?
It's because we are not very strict on, one, ensuring that all of us adhere to the discipline of political education within the African National Congress, so that we must not cut corners when we do political education and we do the development of cadreship within the ANC. That is problem number one. Problem number two, we do not strengthen our systems such that it is the systems based on the work that we do on the ground that must help us arrive at particular decisions. So that critically we need to be looking at the work that we do, not who are you aligned to in the organization. Three, we are very weak on instilling consistent, objective discipline across the organization. So that is what causes some of the cracks within the organization. And people then survive by diverting the focus of the leadership to how they are treated by certain individuals instead of them doing the work on the ground. If, for instance, you are supposed to have done certain work as a councillor, to have made sure that you reduce poverty by a certain percentage, reach so many people in a month, people must have water, electricity. We need to look at that work, not in terms of who you think is ganging up against you.
All right. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. I wish we did so that we could really pick this document apart and you take us through it. But there's something that you mentioned. You say that there are some known gangsters and thugs within the ANC and they are never touched by the SAPS. Who are these?
Well, I won't mention names. But
why won't you mention names? Because if you say that there are such individuals that exist within the ANC, you know them. Why are you not going to the SAPS or even speaking out in public about who they are, because you say they're not being touched?
No, remember that people have got their rights in the country, right? So in order for us, I've mentioned the names of people throughout the country, province by province. It's known in the structures of the ANC that there are networks of thugs within the ANC. And what the thugs do, some of them are linked to the business people, and the business people finance the thuggery within the African National Congress. And if the thuggery grows and becomes stronger, it becomes more powerful than the membership itself of the organization, and therefore branches can reign such people because they have pocketed almost every board who is in authority within the ANC. So internally, those have been raised within the ANC, and it is known.
So you're saying the ANC has been infiltrated by thugs, or its members are thugs?
The ANC is infiltrated by thugs, and unfortunately we are not decisive enough to do the detection, but also to make sure that we stop the thuggery from when it starts. Because when it has grown and it has become more powerful within the organization, it becomes difficult to deal with because, as I say, some of us as leaders, we are controlled by these big cacophons of thuggery within the African National Congress.
So as a leader yourself of the ANC, at the back of that and also at the back of what you're raising in your document, you talk about the vulnerable position that the ANC also finds itself in. You talk about the decline in support, for the ANC. You are a leader yourself within the ANC. You were at some point the chair of the ANC in the North West province. How much responsibility do you take for where the ANC finds itself now?
Well, every individual within the ANC and generally in humanity, you will never reach a stage where you say you are perfect as a person. So what you need to do is to look at your weaknesses, and that is what the paper says. It says we must develop processes within the ANC where we can, as individuals and collectively, on a continuous basis, not after 5 years, every month, every member has to be looked at, especially those who are in leadership, those who are deployed to perform certain tasks. And then we must assess you based on the tasks that you have performed. If there are weaknesses that are there, we need to work on the weaknesses so that you can improve as a cadre. If the weaknesses over time cannot be overcome, it means somebody else will have to take that particular responsibility. Now, unfortunately, in the ANC, sometimes we wait for 5 years until the next elections. Is then that we say, let's look at your performance. So the paper is suggesting that every month there must be a report, and the report must not just go to the ANC.
Yes.
It must go to the community, so that the community itself, not the branch of the ANC, the community must decide whether you must still stay in that position or not.
So for you, though, as a leader, personally, let's leave collective responsibility aside for now and what the ANC needs to do. What responsibility are you taking personally as someone who led even in the Northwest, for example, and has been senior in the ANC? What personal responsibility are you taking, and what are some of the weaknesses that you've identified in your leadership?
Well, as I say, you will never forever be perfect in the organization. For instance, in my case, I had put on systems for people to account. The systems must be taken care of other people to make sure that they are implemented and so on. So one will say, by not making sure that, for instance, we've got an IT system that is capable of helping on the ground the branches of the ANC to report, so that the report that gets to be forwarded to the upper structures can be acted upon urgently. We're a bit slow in that regard. That's what I'm saying. We need to improve in that area, so that it's your work that must speak to you.
Part of the decline in support has been the ANC, also losing in several municipalities. And at the same time, when one juxtaposes it, you look at the AG's report and the dire picture that it's painting of some of the municipalities. Some say, for example, when they look at the document that you've penned, that you are part of the problem. And they say that, for example, when they look at what is happening in the Northwest, that interministerial task team that found a slew of weaknesses across the provincial government and municipalities. This includes poor governance practices, skills shortage, incompetence, corruption, etc. They say that you are part of this problem that has gotten the Northwest to say into this position, and therefore you cannot be penning such a document. How do you respond to those who say that?
Well, the fact that people have got perceptions against you doesn't take away your right to express your view. Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that I have written to the NCOP on numerous occasions, including yesterday. I wrote the last letter to the NCOP. And I said to them, nobody listened to me when Section 100 was brought here and it was outlined for the province so that we deal with those challenges. I was never given a chance to explain my side of the story, whether it's auditing, whether it's allegations that have been made against me and so on, the plans that we had to change the economy of the province around. I was never even once called upon to say, sit here, can you tell your side of the story? So this is what I'm asking for the NCOP to give, so that South Africans can know the side of the story, our plans that were there and how the plans were thwarted, so that the situation can appear to be bleak. So that time will come.
Okay, we out of time. Let's be very brief then with this one. We saw you being part of a march to Lutuli House, calling for accountability, and others calling for the president to step down. You were part of that. You addressed that march. That was also calling for the president's head when it comes to this Phala controversy. You are going into a policy conference this weekend. Some have said that that particular march was simply just a show. It was a PR stunt.
Well, people are entitled to their views. Members of the African National Congress, in terms of the Constitution, have got the right to critique constructively any leader of the ANC, including the president of the African National Congress. That is why you go nowhere but you go to the head office of the African National Congress. And any leader in the ANC must be able to accept when you are criticized, sit down and discuss the matters that have been raised. So we hope that at some point the leadership will say, let's discuss point by point these issues that you are raising here. For instance, some of the issues we are raising is the extent to which the divisions within the ANC are being worsened by the situation that is unfolding now, where the president is accused of having concealed in an illegal manner the proceedings that happened as his private farm in Phala. So those things must be discussed by the ANC. It can't be said, no, the law enforcement agencies are dealing with the matter and therefore the ANC cannot discuss the extent to which this might be bringing tensions and divisions in the ANC, because it is dividing the ANC and the society.
All right, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time. And let's see then on the outcomes, how much of what you've penned is in fact going to maybe even make it. Let's see what happens. That was Supra Mahumapelo, former Northwest ANC chairperson. Thank you so much for your time.